is Adonijah, and what did he seek to do in the latter days of David's reign? This is the question we seek to answer today as we begin our verse-by-verse study of the book of 1 Kings on walking through the Bible.
Glory of his cross.
Today we're going to be discussing 1 Kings chapter 1, verses 1 to 14, but before we do that, let's read the passage. If you have a Bible with you, you can turn to 1 Kings chapter 1, verse 1, but if you don't have a Bible, don't worry, just follow along with us on the screen. The version that we'll be reading from is the New King James Version. So 1 Kings chapter 1, beginning at verse 1. Now King David was old, advanced in years, and they put covers on him, but he could not get warm. Therefore his servants said to him, Let a young woman, a virgin, be sought for our lord the king, and let her stand before the king, and let her care for him, and let her lie in your bosom, that our lord the king may be warm. So they sought for a lovely young woman throughout all the territory of Israel, and found Abishag the Shunammite, and brought her to the king. The young woman was very lovely, and she cared for the king, and served him. But the king did not know her. Then Adonijah the son of Haggith exalted himself, saying, I will be king. And he prepared for himself chariots and horsemen, and 50 men to run before him. And his father had not rebuked him at any time by saying, Why have you done so? He was also very good looking. His mother had borne him after Absalom. Then he conferred with Joab the son of Zeruiah, and Abiathar the priest, and they followed and helped Adonijah. But Zadok the priest, Benaiah the son of Jehoiada, Nathan the prophet, Shimei, Ray, and the mighty men who belonged to David were not with Adonijah. And Adonijah sacrificed sheep and oxen, and fattened cattle by the stone of Zeholeth, which is by Enrogel. He also invited all his brothers, the king's sons, and all the men of Judah, the king's servants. But he did not invite Nathan the prophet, Benaiah the mighty man, or Solomon his brother. So Nathan spoke to Bathsheba, the mother of Solomon, saying, Have you not heard that Adonijah the son of Haggith has become king, and David our Lord does not know it? Come, please, let me give you advice, that you may save your own life and the life of your son Solomon. Go immediately to King David and say to him, Did you not, my lord, O king, swear to your maidservant, saying, Assuredly your son Solomon shall reign after me, and he shall sit on my throne? Why then has Adonijah become king? Then while you are still talking there with the king, I also will come in after you and confirm your words. The book of 2 Samuel ended with David being a rather old man. It contained the last inspired words of David. However, as far as the narrative went, it ended with David returning to Jerusalem from his exile from Absalom, leaving the final 10 or so years of his reign unaccounted for. The beginning of 1 Kings gives us a possibility for this, which is that following his return to Jerusalem, David's health began to fail. It eventually got so bad that he couldn't keep himself warm. Even though the book of 1 Kings doesn't say, we know the approximate age of David here, for 2 Samuel 5 verse 4 says that David was 30 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned for 40 years. This makes him about 70 years old here in 1 Kings chapter 1. With the king unable to keep warm even under blankets, and without all of the medicine or treatments of today, it was determined that they needed to fetch a beautiful young woman, a virgin, to minister to the king as a nurse, and lay in his bosom in order to keep him warm. By saying that she needed to be beautiful and a virgin, it can be assumed that what was intended was for David to take this woman as another concubine and engage in a sexual relationship with her, which would have a side effect of warming the king up, even if only momentarily. She would also attend to every other need of the king and lie with him in order that he might steal her body heat, as it were. Now you might ask, David had many wives and many concubines. Why couldn't any of them be used? Well, if David is 70 years old, how old are his wives and concubines? Even Bathsheba would be about 25 years older than she was when she committed adultery with David. So if the goal was to excite David to the point that he would engage in a sexual relationship with the woman and be willing to lay consistently close to this woman, a young beautiful woman would be required. Now, of course, we correctly view this as something that should not have been done, because David should only have one wife. But that ship had long sailed with David, who had many wives and concubines, and it is something that God seemingly overlooked in the Old Testament times, even though he does not do so today. Abishag of Shunem, a city in Issachar, was found, and she came and ministered to the king. However, it is said that she did not know the king, meaning that she did not have sex with him. This is an important point to remember for chapter 2, so please keep that in the back of your minds. While all of this is going on, there is a growing power vacuum in Israel, as David is not able to fulfill the duties of state while he is sick and dying. Now, usually a regent would be placed in control, with the regent, if possible, being the next in line to the throne. Such had not been done here, leaving room for Adonijah, David's eldest remaining son, to attempt to take the reins of power. Recall from 2 Samuel that David had 3 sons before Adonijah. Amnon died at the hands of Absalom for raping his half-sister Tamar. We do not have the death of Chileab recorded, but due to the actions of Adonijah here, it can be assumed that he died young. How, we do not know. And then, of course, Absalom died in battle, having usurped the throne of David. In the normal way of things, Adonijah, as the eldest son, would be next in line to the throne, and so, while premature as he had been appointed regent, it wouldn't be seen as out of the ordinary for him to take over as regent to the king. After all, like Absalom, he was very good looking, so he looked the part of the king in the eyes of men, and again, as oldest son, ascension would be expected. And so Adonijah began to collect chariots and horsemen to run before him, meant to show the people that he was now king. On top of that, he also began to collect followers, such as Joab, David's general, and Abiathar, one of the high priests, and they went after Adonijah and helped him in his ascension to the throne. To further cement his claim to the throne, he offered sacrifices at Enrogel, a place just outside of Jerusalem, a public exhibition of his ascension, an event that he invited all of his brothers except Solomon to, as well as the men of Judah. However, not all of those aligned with David followed after Adonijah. Zadok, the other high priest, Benaiah, the son of Jehoiada, the leader of David's bodyguards, Nathan the prophet, Shimei, Ray, and the mighty men who belonged to David remain aligned with David, not Adonijah. Now, why would this be? Well, we have something recorded for us here that we didn't get from 2 Samuel, and that is sometime in the past, David had made a promise to Bathsheba that it would be Solomon, her second son, who would take the throne after him. Now, I'm sure this was with God's blessing and at his direction, but this oath was known to the inner court of David. Even in chapter 2, Adonijah is going to tell Bathsheba that Solomon's ascension as king is from the Lord, showing us that it is highly likely that he too knew of this oath, making his treachery here in chapter 1 all the more worse. And so it is for this reason that some of the major figures in David's court likely didn't go after after Adonijah. But an oath is only good if it is executed. So Nathan spurs Bathsheba to approach the king and remind him of it and tell him of the actions of Adonijah. And in case David's mind wasn't completely sharp and he didn't remember the oath, or had, unbeknownst to them, in his old age been convinced into giving Adonijah the throne, Nathan told Bathsheba that he would come in after her and confirm all the things that she said, so that David would believe her. We invite you back in the next lesson as we continue discussing the actions of Bathsheba and Nathan concerning Solomon. With that, our time is up for today. We hope you'll join us for tomorrow's discussion of 1 Kings chapter 1, verses 15 to 27, as we continue our walk through the Bible, one verse at a time. Thank you for watching today's episode. We hope that you found it edifying and ask that you not only subscribe to our channel and podcast, but that you like and share this episode among your friends, so that the saving gospel of Jesus Christ can go out to the whole world.